Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking the architecture behind what is honestly one of the most phenomenal business stories of our lifetime. We're going to dive into the history, the strategy, and the raw data that explains exactly how a single tech brand managed to completely captivate the globe.
$5 trillion. Let that sink in for a second. During intraday trading, Apple briefly crossed a market capitalization of $5 trillion. That puts them in a club with NVIDIA that literally no other public company in history has ever entered. And this staggering valuation, it was fueled by intense global demand, a massive services business, and a lot of continued optimism around their artificial intelligence initiatives. But, an empire this massive doesn't just happen overnight.
So, the big multi-trillion-dollar question we're exploring today is this. How did a company that was literally founded in a Cupertino garage back in 1976 scale up to a historic $5 trillion valuation? What is the exact formula they use to lock in users and just print revenue year after year?
Well, to understand the peak, we've got to start at the foundation. So, Section 1, Founding and the Jobs Era.
We're going all the way back to 1976. Apple began with Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, and Ronald Wayne. Their first major commercial breakthrough came just a year later with the Apple II. But the modern DNA of Apple, that core philosophy of creating accessible, beautiful, and just deeply interconnected technology, that really took shape in the 2000s. We saw the iPod in 2001, and then, of course, the monumental debut of the iPhone in 2007. Steve Jobs didn't just want to make good computers. He was out to create an entirely new relationship between humans and machines.
And this brings us to a pretty profound insight from the source material. Jobs built a system where each product made the next one more desirable. Apple wasn't just selling isolated gadgets, right? Think about it. The iPod drew people in. iTunes kept them there. And because all your music was already in iTunes, buying an iPhone suddenly made perfect sense. Every single component was deliberately designed to increase the value of everything else around it.
That overarching strategy completely set the stage for a product that altered the trajectory of the modern world. Let's move into Section 2, the iPhone revolution.
The iPhone wasn't just a communication device. It truly became a cultural and economic force. It basically drove the entire global smartphone market and birthed totally new industries right out of thin air. We're talking mobile app development, mobile gaming, on-the-go e-commerce, the whole shebang. It became one of the most important consumer products in history, expanding Apple's reach all over the globe, especially in massive markets like China.
But why did the iPhone succeed where so many others completely failed? Well, it really comes down to this core difference. Most companies sell isolated hardware. A product is just a single thing you buy. But Apple, they built an integrated consumer platform. And a platform acts as a hub. When you buy wireless earbuds from Apple, they instantly pair with your iPhone, they seamlessly switch over to your Mac, and they tie directly into your Apple ID. The value just grows exponentially for you as a user the more pieces you connect.
That platform approach is absolutely their secret sauce. Welcome to Section 3, Building the Apple Ecosystem. When Jobs stepped down as CEO back in 2011, there was honestly a ton of uncertainty. But Tim Cook, with his brilliant background in supply chain management and operations, stepped up and transformed Apple into an absolute execution powerhouse. Under Cook, Apple's revenue completely surged. He steered them to record profits, successfully launched the Apple Watch, the AirPods, and built out this massive, highly profitable services division. Cook's real operational genius was perfecting what business strategists call vertical integration. Essentially, vertical integration means one company controls the entire stack. Apple designs the physical device, they engineer their own custom silicon chips, they write the operating system, they manage the retail distribution, and they run the ongoing subscription services. The goal isn't just to own more stuff, it's to entirely eliminate user friction.
And that is what creates the legendary walled garden, built in 4 very distinct layers. Step 1 is custom hardware, designed for a highly specific purpose. Step 2 is proprietary software that runs flawlessly on that hardware. Step 3, subscription services like Apple Music and Apple TV Plus that offer you ongoing value. And step 4 is a unified identity through iCloud that ties all your data across every single device. Once you're inside this garden, leaving literally means losing the piece of your digital life.
So, how does this beautifully engineered trap actually impact consumer behavior? Let's check out Section 4, Marketing and Unrivaled Loyalty.
The sheer power of this ecosystem translates directly to the numbers. A massive 92% of iPhone users stay with Apple when they upgrade. Just to put that into perspective, their biggest rival, Samsung, sits around 77%.
The emotional connection here is just profound. 73% of iPhone users see themselves as deeply loyal, and a lot of them report that switching brands would honestly feel like losing a part of their workflow or even their digital self.
Once they have you with the iPhone, they pull you in deeper. If an iPhone user goes out and buys a smartwatch, 81% of the time it's going to be an Apple Watch. 69% of them own an iPad. 60% own AirPods. This cross-selling is virtually automatic because the devices just work together so perfectly. Features like handoff, universal clipboard, and iCloud syncing make buying third-party accessories feel, quite frankly, like a downgrade.
And the crazy part is they keep these locked-in customers incredibly happy. Apple's Net Promoter Score, which is a really key metric for customer satisfaction and loyalty, hits a 61. Now, a score above 50 is generally considered excellent, and the tech industry average is only around 58. This sky-high score is fueled by unparalleled in-store experiences like the Genius Bar, exceptional customer support, and just the immense brand pride that comes with owning an Apple device.
So how do we define all of this from a pure business strategy perspective? That brings us to Section 5, the ultimate competitive advantage. According to academic research using what's called the resource-based view, a company gains a sustained competitive advantage through resources that meet the VRIO framework. That means the resources have to be valuable, rare, costly to imitate, and organized to capture value. Apple possesses two main weapons that easily pass this ultimate test: their complete interconnected ecosystem of products and services, and their intense, totally relentless focus on research and development.
And you can clearly see that R&D commitment in action. If you look at the top global R&D spenders, Apple sits super high on the list, committing a staggering $11.6 billion to R&D in this snapshot. They don't just rest on their past successes. They are continuously pouring billions into developing custom chips, new health features for the Apple Watch, and AI integration, making absolutely sure their valuable and rare resources stay years ahead of the competition. So, when you combine vertical integration, a tightly sealed walled garden ecosystem, extreme customer loyalty, and massive R&D budgets, you get these mind-blowing scale metrics. By 2024, there were over 2.2 billion active Apple devices on Earth. 2.2 billion. The App Store facilitated $1.3 trillion in billings in a single year. Services like Apple Music boast a 62% retention rate. This is the exact, undeniable formula that made them the first company to reach $1 trillion, then $2 trillion, $3 trillion, and eventually pave the way to that historic $5 trillion mark.
It really all boils down to this perfectly summarized quote from our sources. For any business, the question worth asking is whether your products pull customers deeper. Apple's masterclass isn't just in making great phones or great laptops. It's in making sure that every single thing they sell acts as an absolute, irresistible gateway to the next thing they sell.
Which leaves us with a pretty fascinating thought to ponder. We've watched them conquer personal computing, the music industry, mobile communications, and wearable health tech. As Apple continues to fortify its $5 trillion walled garden with artificial intelligence and entirely new spatial computing platforms, which industry will they completely redefine next? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, and I'll see you next time.